The deeper significance of the dance form is to lure one from lust to higher consciousness. So, therefore, it enables women in particular to connect with their own femininity. In Indian society, are you married? शादी शुदा है, आपके husband कहाँ है? As if a woman who has no husband, who doesn't wear sindoor, mangal sutra, she's not sacred. Mono mor mekheru shungi उड़े चले दिग दिगंतेरो पाने.
Welcome to Expressions. An exponent of Mohiniyattam, she has not only carved a niche for herself but also played an important role in reviving this classical dance form in India and abroad. She keeps alive the rich artistic legacy of her mother and guru, the legendary Mohiniyattam dancer and Padma Shri Bharti Shivaji. Eminent dancers, choreographer, singer, actor, writer, Vijayalakshmi is also a strong advocate of women's empowerment. She believes in using various art forms to convey this message effectively. Join me on this podcast as this third generation Indian classical artist shares her creative journey and how it's shaped her perspective of art, relationships, and empowering women. Welcome, Vijayalakshmi. Thank you for coming to Expression Podcast, and so happy to have you here all the way from LA.
Thank you so much, Neha. It's an absolute pleasure to be here today.
Thank you. Just we'll start off. I would like to know about your growing up years, early years. Who was your inspiration? I read about your mom, Padma Bharti Shivaji, and her dedication towards Indian classical music, Carnatic music. So, how was it growing up in this background, and what was it like?
I feel extremely fortunate and blessed to have been born in a family like this where, classical music and dance was just absolutely in the air. It was from the time we woke up to the last thing that we were immersed in at night. And my grandmother is a Carnatic singer, and my mother is a classical dancer. Of course, she's a Mohiniyattam dancer, and she's also a singer. And so it was very natural for me to absorb and imbibe all these very rich and potent classical traditions of music and dance and beyond, and be inspired, by it all.
Yeah. But who was your inspiration? What was it that inspired you to take up Mohiniyattam?
Right. So my inspiration was definitely my mother for Mohiniyattam, but I started dancing at the age of 5 and with Bharatanatyam. And at that time, my mother was not doing Mohiniyattam. She was also a Bharatanatyam dancer. In fact, she did Bharatanatyam for 25 years. So it's very interesting. I consider myself extraordinarily blessed because I was about 10 years old when my mother's own tryst with Mohiniyattam began. So, in some ways, our journeys of Mohiniyattam have run parallelly. How many disciples can say that of their gurus, where the disciple and guru's journey has been almost begun at the same time? How fortunate am I?
Yeah.
So that's what happened. I was around 10 when she started, and then gradually during my teens and early teens, I 12 or so, I started Mohiniyattam, but I was not a big fan of the dance form. Then as I started becoming a little older, 13, 14, I got very gradually very drawn to the dance form. And by the time in my late teens, I simply could not relate to Bharatanatyam.
Okay.
So it was clearly my mother.
Okay. And what is that one quality about her that you've imbibed in yourself and carried forward?
I think it's most certainly her passion for Mohiniyattam, her passion.
And how did you develop your own unique style in this art
Yeah,
form?
that's a great question. My mother, for those who don't know, is Bharati Shivaji. She is singularly responsible for reviving, reconstructing Mohiniyattam and giving it a new lease of life. Almost 5 decades ago now, I would say about 4.5 decades ago, she's singularly responsible for putting it on the national map in India and the international map, so to speak. What was your question after that?
How did you develop your own unique style?
How did I develop? So I was able to, because of having a guru like mine, I was able to understand and absorb and imbibe a very sound foundation for the dance form. For anything, whether it's a dance form or whatever it may be, the foundation is the most fundamental and the most significant aspect. So, because I had the foundation so sound, I was able to sort of play with the rules and even break it. Some artist said, when you know the rules well, you can break it. And I did that.
Okay.
I did that. I have had a lot of fun with the rules, but where it's like people say, oh, you've done so much innovative work, and how do you be careful about not transgressing and stepping out of its traditional, roots? I said that's never ever going to happen, even if I tried. It's like telling a woman, for example, telling you, oh, Neha, please don't forget that you're a woman, huh? Do you forget? No. So it's the same way for me. I can't, even if I try to do some other dance form, it can't happen because this is the only dance form that I'm so passionate about.
What is about Mohiniyattam that drew you towards it? And you said that you couldn't take up Bharatanatyam. So what was it?
Yeah, I just could not relate to Bharatanatyam anymore. Not to put the dance form down. I had a lot of fun with it during my younger years, and it was dynamic and racy and and lovely crisp jatis. I enjoyed it. I loved all that spirit. But as I started growing into my teen years, and I was always a very contemplative and a very intense kind of a young girl. I was not a typical young girl. So intense things always drew me, whether it was Upanishads or it was spiritual teachings or Western classical music. I always gravitated towards very intense things. With Mohiniyattam, I felt when I danced it, I found it to be very meditative. I think that's what really drew me. Very meditative, very elevating, very, very healing, very calming, and extremely feminine. And it enabled me to connect with my own femininity.
Yeah. So what is Mohiniyattam? And there are different aspects to it, right? It's about grace. It's about women empowerment. It has a message behind each performance of Mohiniyattam. What can you elaborate and tell us more about it?
Right. So Mohiniyattam literally translates into dance of the divine enchantress. Mohini meaning the divine enchantress, Attam meaning dance.
Okay.
So the dance form is rooted very much in the divine feminine. Therefore, the movements of the dance form are very graceful, very languorous, with no abrupt movements. And there are a couple of very significant aspects of the dance form. One, that it's very spiritual. Of course, most of the Indian dance forms are spiritual, but this particular dance form is very deeply rooted in the divine feminine. And that is not a small thing by any means. Because it is, after all, Vishnu transforming himself. The deeper significance of the dance form is to lure one from lust to higher consciousness.
Wow.
That is the deeper meaning, which I think, to begin with, the Mohiniyattam dancer must understand, and the spectator. This is not just some enticement where it's not some kind of let's say like a cabaret, or to not put cabaret down. This is really what is the enticement for? Why did Vishnu transform himself? To enable one to evolve to higher consciousness. So therefore, the experience for the audience, for the spectator, is very elevating. And because it's rooted in the divine feminine, so therefore it enables women in particular to connect with their own femininity, to discover the power of their own femininity. Why is the dance form, amongst all the other Indian dance forms, why is this particular one so healing, therapeutic, and empowering for women? Because the movements are very slow, very deliberate, very demanding. And I've worked with a lot of healers, spiritual healers, and they have observed something. They've sort of reaffirmed my mother's and my belief that we've always believed, that the dance form is, the technique is very healing and therapeutic because it's very reminiscent of the ancient Chinese martial art form of Tai Chi and Qigong. See, the
Okay.
movements are very slow. The entire body is involved, not just hands or
Yeah.
not just eyes. So, what it does is it enables the practitioner to release uh, emotions, like fear and, things like that, anger, suppressed emotions. It enables the dancer to release it and get healed. So it is a very powerful dance form for women.
And what are the musical instruments used here? And I know that it sort of leads by the eye, right? I mean, you have a lot of movements with your eyes, is it?
Yes, I'm so glad you brought that up
Yeah.
because Mohiniyattam is a very rich Indian dance form.
Yeah.
Why? One, we've already talked about the technique.
Yeah.
The dance form, the parent art form for the dance form is Kalari Paita.
Yeah.
So Kalari Paita is the more than 2,000-year-old martial art form of Kerala,
Yeah.
which by any means is not easy to do in the sense.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of body movement if you compare it to other Indian dance forms also. To do something slowly that involves the entire body is far much more demanding than doing something really quick
Yeah.
and only moving our hands.
Absolutely.
There's a huge difference.
Yeah.
Because, when we teach students from other disciplines, they said, oh my goodness, we did not know Mohiniyattam is like this. Because when you see it, Mohiniyattam कितना सुंदर है, कितना graceful है, वो तो है, मगर इसमें बहुत मेहनत भी पड़ती है.
Yeah.
In a beautiful way.
Yeah.
In a beautiful way, mehnat.
And I also see that there's that Shringar plays a
Yes.
very important role in this dance form, right?
Yes.
And so why do you feel Shringar is important for a woman, in their, even not just for a performance, but even in their everyday life? So what is the connection?
Right. Before I answer that, I forgot to respond to the eye movements.
Yeah.
The other very significant aspect of Mohiniyattam is the dramatic dimension, more than any other Indian classical dance form.
Yeah.
Why? Because Mohiniyattam is from Kerala. It's the theatre capital not just of India but of the world.
Yeah.
Why of the world? Because it has dance drama traditions like Kudiyattam and Nangyar Kuthu, which go back to the 9th century AD, where the entire dance form is pretty much danced through the eyes.
Yeah.
Only through the eyes, which no Indian dance form has.
Yeah.
I mean, the kind of elaborate eye movements and the kind of theatre that happens in Kerala dance traditions doesn't happen in any part of India, let alone part of the world. So naturally, when Mohiniyattam has such brilliant parents like Kalari Paita and Kudiyattam, I mean, the kid is going to be brilliant. So there is very rich technique.
Yeah.
There is extremely rich, elaborate theatre, dramatic dimension.
Yeah.
So
you mentioned
that's
that.
already set it apart,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely. So what about the Shringar and the Ghungru and the hairstyle?
Yes. So
What-
Shringa Ghungru is not such a big deal. That's there for most Indian dance forms. And now Shringar, to translate that, Shringar translates into feminine beauty, right? Now, what do we understand by femininity? What do we understand by feminine beauty? Is it only, that's the way I like to address the dance form and relate it to our present times. What do we understand by feminine beauty? Is it only our body? Is it only our face? Does it only apply to women who look beautiful, however you define beauty? No. Femininity is much more than a woman's body, far much more,
Yeah.
far much more. And it's, if anything, it is so diminishing to ascribe only physical beauty to a woman, or only think that a woman is only about her body. It's so diminishing. So this is really about, to me, I really use the dance form as a powerful tool to uh, shed light on the power of femininity for us as women, especially. And to begin with, as Indian women, what does femininity mean to us? There's much more to it than the body. And I mean, not just in India, it's all over the world. Even in the West, women are fed up of just being objectified or just perceived as the body. It's absurd.
Yes. So you're saying that this did help you discover the power within yourself, and that's why every woman should also try and do this, practice this dance form.
Yeah, I mean, practice the dance form. I don't say that everybody should practice it. It's not possible.
Yeah.
Everybody, women have various professions and they excel in it. It's wonderful. In fact, it inspires me.
Yeah.
But even just watching a performance,
Yeah.
or participating in a workshop, or hearing about it, or reading about it, or delving into the deeper significance of the dance form and how it can impact them in their everyday life.
Yeah.
Or just delving deeper into femininity.
And you did say that it also was for you a way of expressing your emotions and letting out anger and the other kind of emotions. So it did help you in your personal relationships and personal life as well.
Absolutely. It's always helped me tremendously. I've always found the dance form to be very meditative.
Yes, you mentioned.
Very, very, very meditative. And
So it helped you grow as a person?
Absolutely, because I've always been drawn to anything that's meditative, and because from a very young age I started practicing meditation. So for me, it was very natural. I've always loved nature, I've always meditated from a young age. So I thought, oh my God, how beautiful, a dance form which is so meditative. That's perfect. I can't imagine doing any other dance form. So it really, there was a certain sort of a synergy around everything. It's not consciously planned, but it happens very naturally.
And do you feel that this dance form is suited for academic pursuit also?
Academic pursuits? Most certainly. In fact, the dance form is so unique with so many dimensions that we might not have enough time to talk about it, and I clearly get very excited talking about it all. Certainly, of course. I don't have a PhD in Mohiniyattam, neither does my mother. And my mother, she always wanted me to do a PhD, but I didn't think I needed the PhD ka chap. So over the many years, I have a lot of students who do PhD under me, UCLA, and it's quite sort of fun to see that. Because I don't believe in external validation. Of course, if it comes, wonderful. But how is it suited for academic pursuit? Because Kerala has so much history and so much of art history, so many of the richest dance drama traditions in the country. Like I said, more than 2,000-year-old martial art forms, different sort of dance traditions. And so there's so much to delve into. My goodness, one PhD is not enough. And the power of the dance form is that the technique is so versatile, which is why I was so happily and gleefully able to supposedly break the rules. Which is why almost 20 years ago, I created an entire production called Swan Lake from Tchaikovsky's famous ballet, world famous ballet.
I'd like you to talk to us about it. I read about it, which seemed very, very interesting. So, how did that happen, and what was the highlight of the performance?
Right. So how did that happen? It goes back many years ago in 1987 when I was performing in USSR with my mother. I was very fortunate that from the age of 12, I started performing all over the world with my mother. So I really took off from a very young age. So in '87, I was in USSR with my mother performing, and I happened to see a lot of ballet till it was coming out of every pore in my body. And Bolshoi and the Kirov theatre. And I always loved Western classical music, although I come from a very, very traditional South Indian Tam family. But I always loved international music. I loved Western classical music in particular, Beethoven and Mozart in particular. I was mesmerized by Tchaikovsky, totally, and I found his music to be very spiritual, very intense, very elevating, very dramatic. I said, okay. So that was 18 years ago. And I thought, oh my God. Came back to India. And every day I would soak in Tchaikovsky. And then 18 years later, I never realized that one day I would create an entire production inspired. And I premiere it in Delhi in April. I get a call in May or June from the government of India saying, Vijayalakshmi, well, congratulations on a tremendous success, but would you like to present it at the Bolshoi Theatre in Moscow?
Wow.
I said, are you kidding?
Yeah.
Is this a prank? I was like, no. I said, oh my goodness, this is every dancer's dream
Yeah.
in any part of the world to perform at the Bolshoi. And for me to present it with my 25 co-dancers troupe, I just couldn't ask for more.
So you also performed at Edinburgh International Festival, at the Lincoln Theatre, and you had various performances like Unyarcha.
That was my first choreography.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Paryapti, Rain. In the Rain, I read that it was music by Grammy nominee Mac Quill.
Yes.
And also that there was something about Drupad tradition music by Wasifuddin Dagar.
Yes.
So can you tell us about all this? Sounds so interesting, and I want to know more about it.
Yeah. I always, before, I think of the audience, it's always about, okay, am I having fun dancing it?
And these were all solo performances?
No, these were all group.
Okay.
Group.
Okay.
So it's always about what is exciting to me. First, I have to get excited.
Yeah. And you did
I choreographed all of it.
Yeah. Okay.
I also sung for some of them.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Because my grandmother taught me music.
Yeah.
And so I thought, and my mother is also a singer.
Yeah.
So I thought, and I love Rabindra Sangeet. I love Tagore. I'm quite fanatically obsessed with Tagore. So such an amazing artist.
Yes.
What an icon. What a phenomena. So, yeah, Uniyarcha was my first choreography, talking about femininity and beauty. I got tired of the way femininity was portrayed in Indian culture.
Yeah.
Itni sundar hai, sushil hai, so soft, so kind. I'm not saying women should be aggressive, but it is such a limited perception and interpretation of femininity. So limited. So I did something really radical. I really got fed up of this very pathetic portrayal, including in Mohiniyattam. And the languishing heroine, oh my lord is not here, absolutely wilted and like a wispy woman. I don't want to eat, and my lord Vishnu or Shiva hasn't. I said, I am done with this. I am not doing this. I told my mother, I love you, I love Mohiniyattam, but no, not me. So, what is femininity? Femininity is also about valor.
Yeah.
So I expanded the definition of femininity and brought into its fold valor.
Yeah.
Inspired from a true story of a woman who lived in Kerala about 350 years ago. And that was brought to the fold of femininity, the Veera Rasa. Veera Ras. And it worked out beautifully,
Yeah.
And because it's a very inaccurate portrayal of femininity.
Yeah.
Extreme, not just diminishing, inaccurate.
Yeah, I know. Women are far more than just.
And especially in our South Asian Indian culture, it has been misused, and women have been, it's just been so misused. And I feel very fiercely, about it. Yeah, as for the what is the other production? Paryapti. That's one of my favorite productions, inspired from the wonderful musical Durga Puja ethos of Bengal. I have
Wow.
a very special affinity with Bengal, although I'm not a Bengali and my family has an affinity with Bengal. Has. I've always been very drawn to Durga and Durga Puja,
Yeah.
and it drives me insanely crazy and happy.
Again,
So
they're all very powerful goddess and
I've always been very
yeah.
drawn to
Yeah.
Durga. I was always a very feisty girl. Maybe that's why. Always. I was like a very born feminist.
Yeah.
So obviously, naturally, I was drawn to Durga. And I thought, what really was my inspiration with that is that even today, the soil for Durga's idol is, you know, Durga's propitiated with the soil from the sex worker's house, where it is, the idol is not consecrated till soil is brought from a sex worker's house. So it was my way of, I was I was very inspired by that because um, it really sheds light on the inclusive nature of the divine feminine
Yeah.
and of the sacred. How do we define the sacred? To me, in Indian society, are you married? Shadi shuda hai, aapke husband kahan hai? As if a woman who has no husband, who doesn't wear sindoor, mangal sutra, she's not sacred. So this was my, if you call it maybe rebellion or tribute,
Yeah.
tribute to marginalized women of society, including the sex worker. And I love this fact that in this beautiful and powerful Durga Puja tradition, nothing less than the Durga Puja, the idol is not consecrated or propitiated till soil from a sex worker, a woman's house is brought.
Beautiful. I didn't know this.
Yes, neither did I. When I heard it, the moment I heard this, I said, I am going to do this.
And what about Rain? How
Rain
did
was
that?
phenomenal. The poet, again, coincidentally happened to be a Bengali poet. He's
Yeah.
internationally British poet
Yeah.
called Sudeep Sen.
Yes.
And we had met a couple of years ago, and he said he absolutely loves Mohiniyattam.
Okay.
And he said, you know what, I think you should do something with this, with my book of poetry. I love poetry because I used to
Yeah.
dabble a little bit as a teen because I'm a student of English literature. I've always been passionate about poetry. I said, I'd love to. And I love rain. That's my
Yeah.
favorite season. I said, sounds fantastic. Let's jump into it. I jumped into it. And then I said, okay, there's a segment called Rain in Bengal. I said, all right, what am I going to do? I was taking my dog for a walk. What music shall we put? But before that, I'd worked for about many years with Mac Quayle, who's a Grammy, multiple Grammy Emmy awardee. He's worked with George Lucas in LA and in Hollywood. He's one of the most phenomenal composers of Hollywood. He's not an ordinary composer. Let's just put it that way. I was very fortunate to have met him in LA, going to a studio, and I ended up singing in his studio.
Wow.
And I said, Mac, my whole body is quivering because you've done platinum records with Whitney Houston and Natalie Cole, and I'm not a singer, I'm a dancer. He said, Vijayalakshmi, I am so honored to be the first one to record your voice. I said, that's your humility.
Yeah.
And he's such a sweet man. And so I said, Rain in Bengal, I think Rabindra Sangeet will work very well
Yeah.
here. And I grew up listening to my mother sing Rabindra Sangeet,
Yeah.
in particular this Bengali
Yeah.
song, Monomor Meghero Shongi. And I said, you know what? I'm going to sing it. So I told Mac, when I went back to LA, I said, Mac, I would love for you to arrange this music. This is by the iconic, one of a kind Tagore. No other country has produced him and can produce him.
Yeah.
But
I
his songs
agree.
have been done to death, even though I love them. I want you to do a really fresh spin on it. Fresh. And he doesn't talk much, just little input I gave him. I said, okay, this is all yours. Now have fun. He did Beyond Magic. So the composition remains the same. It is by the wonderful Tagore, but the arrangement. So something that is so quintessentially Indian, so quintessentially Bengali, has been elevated and transformed into world music. To me, There's nothing more phenomenal than that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, would you like to sing a favorite part from this song?
My throat might not be in the best of states.
Okay, don't worry, then we can skip this.
No, I will.
Okay.
But please bear with me with whatever that comes out. So, Mono mor মেঘেরু সঙ্গী উড়ে চলে দিক দিগন্তের পানে নিশিম শুন নিশ্রাবণ বর্ষণ সঙ্গীতে রেমি ঝিম রেমি ঝিম রেমি ঝিম রেমি ঝিম রেমি ঝিম রেমি ঝিম.
Wow, it's beautiful. Very, very beautiful. And what does it mean?
Yeah, so monomor meghero is my heart. Monomor, my heart wants to fly into the horizon and become one with the clouds.
Wow, such a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and become one with the clouds. Monomor meghero shongi ure chole dig digontero into infinity and merge into infinity. And then fall down as rain.
But you have a soulful voice. Huh? It's really lovely.
Oh, thank you. It was not a very good rendition.
No, but still, it sort of touched me inside.
Oh, thank you.
Very nice. I can't wait to see this and hear more about it. So how also can you throw some light on the Geet Govind tradition, Ashtapadi in Kerala temple?
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I'm so happy you raised that because before I talk about my mother, the Gita Govinda was written in the 12th century AD and it came to Kerala in the 14th century. So it has been practiced prevalent in Kerala since the 14th century AD. And what happened was it evolved a very distinct regional style of rendition, which is called Sopana music, very distinct to Kerala. Sopana music is again very steeped in spirituality. And it's very, very full of bhakti. And even today, in the most well-known temple of Kerala called the Guruvayur, Sri Krishna Guruvayur temple, even today, temple doors are closed and opened to the songs of the Ashtapadi. Yeah, it is that such a big influence it has had on Kerala.
It's about Lord Krishna.
Krishna, absolutely. Gita Govindam is all about the divine love of Radha and Krishna. And with the Bhakti movement, it had spread all over India, including Kerala. So about 4.5 decades ago, when my mother was attempting to revive this dance form and giving it a new lease of life, she incorporated the Ashtapadi into the repertoire of Mohiniyattam, which till then was not the case. In fact, it made no sense, and today it has become a very integral part of the Mohiniyattam repertoire. And so, but these Ashtapadis work beautifully with Mohiniyattam because of its bhakti, Shringara rasa. I'm talking of Shringara, the bhakti Shringara, the erotic element. Mohiniyattam is also a very sensual dance form. Let's acknowledge that. And Gita Govindam is again very sensual. And Jaideva is very unapologetic about it. And that's the beauty of our Indian spiritual and aesthetic traditions, where unlike the West, we have been very unapologetic about the sensual. Why should we be apologetic?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But how will you explain this divine romance to the alpha generation now?
Okay, great question. The way I explain it is that the erotic element is in fact, or the sexual element is really symbolic of a very deeper spiritual resonance. And it works both ways. If you were to really interpret that to the young generation, the alpha generation, then I would say that the sexual experience in our life is in fact a very sacred aspect of our life.
Yes.
That's how I would interpret it. It is not just something physical or just something base.
Yeah.
The sexual is always inextricably, very deeply related to the spiritual. That's how I would interpret it.
Also talk to us about Beyond Grace. And I know it was premiered in Los Angeles, Hollywood.
Yes, it premiered in Hollywood.
So take us through the journey, please. And
Yeah, so
want to know more about it.
sure, I had a student in LA, and she was my first student in LA who came to learn Mohiniyattam, and she was very happy. And in a couple of months, she said, "I love this dance form and all of that." And she was a mother; she also had daughters, and I told her about my mother. My mother happened to visit LA, and I said she's my guru, and she's an icon, she's a legend, she's a legendary artist of India. And she said, "Oh my God, your mother's amazing." I said, "Wait till you hear about my grandmother." She's a Carnatic singer. She taught me music. And in fact, she has been a very, very major inspiration. My grandmother has actually been like a mother to me. She's mothered me. She's raised me. And she said, "I am coming to India to make a film on you guys. There's no way I'm going to sit here in LA." She came with her camera with her husband, who's a phenomenal filmmaker himself and a brilliant creative from LA. They both followed us, filmed us in LA, in Chennai, in Delhi, in Kerala. And then, of course, there was also my daughter. At that time, she was also learning dance, and she was also performing with me internationally. She said, "You are 4 generations of women artists. Man, I am coming." And she came, and that was a couple of years ago, maybe about 13, 14 years ago. And it was absolutely wonderful. And the music, so something very interesting happened. The music was done by Mac Quayle. That's the first time I met him.
Yes.
And so her name is Sarah Bauer Harding, the filmmaker. And she said, "Oh, we have a technical audio glitch. Uh, we need to, create music for the whole film because we lost all the audio, with all the various things that happen in India, rain and blah, blah, and transit." I said, "Oh, dear." She said, "But I heard you sing during rehearsals. And you know what? I want you to sing." I said, "No way." But she was very insistent. She's a very insistent director. She said, "I know you sing. You're going to sing." And I ended up singing for the entire soundtrack of the film.
Wow.
And so at the end, it's very interesting because my grandmother also sang, and she sang Carnatic music, and we were just having fun in the studio.
Yeah.
I said, "What did you grow up with?" She said, the singer said, the recordist.
Yeah.
I said, "I grew up with ABBA in the 70s, dancing queens." She said, "Come on, sing, let's have some fun." After we'd finished. So I said, "Okay, so, Friday night and the lights are low, da 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 da." So we were just, jamming in the studio. And he actually recorded all that. And I didn't know that. And then my grandmother singing Bhairavi, Sindhu Bhairavi, which is a very heavy raga. And then she's singing, Malaya la la. She's singing Sindhu Bhairavi, and I'm, "See that girl, watch that," and he jammed the ABBA,
Wow.
bits of the ABBA that I sang, and the Sindhu Bhairavi that my grandmother sang in Carnatic music, and he created Carnatic funk.
Lovely, one of a kind.
Which is,
I mean,
he is beyond brilliant. That's never been done in India. That's never been done anywhere in the world, as far as I know.
yes.
So my grandmother recently celebrated her 100th birthday, for which I was there. 4 generations were there. My mother, my grandmother, my daughter, and I were there to celebrate her 100th birthday. So I played little clips of documentary film where grandmother sang, and we all sang on the swing. And then towards the end, the titles where she sung and the Carnatic funk, and the relatives were.
I'm
they
sure
were.
it must have been a breathtaking.
They just had no words.
Yeah, speechless. Yeah.
Yeah, that was so much fun.
Absolutely. So, what is the movie about? I mean,
Movies about 4 generations of women artists.
Okay.
My grandmother. My grandmother,
And about your life, about
about our
everything.
lives, about our inspirations, about our passion, how passionate we've been.
Okay.
And I've spoken about my grandmother that she
Yeah.
was so ahead of her times.
Yeah.
She raised four daughters. My grandmother and my mother and I performed all over the world. She used to sing for us.
Yeah.
And she used to do theater. She was an actress as well. That's inspired me because I got into acting 20 years ago. And it was one of the most transformative experiences of my life when I first acted with the iconic theatre director of India called Professor Mohan Maharshi, the former chairman of the great National School of Drama.
Wow.
So my grandmother has had a massive impact on me. Massive.
Lovely. To master grace is not at all an easy task, right? So, how can one excel, and how long does it take? And do you feel that performing Mohiniyattam, this has helped you incorporate grace in your life and relationships also?
Yeah, what a lovely question. Absolutely, absolutely. I always tell people that the dance form has a very deep impact on our lives. And actually, what really happens is I would go beyond that, beyond our lifestyle, beyond our relationships. It has a deep impact on our mind, our mindset, our state of mind. So it sort of permeates your entire life, your entire day. It's not that I dance Mohiniyattam 10 hours a day. I don't. Not even 5 hours. Some not even 2 hours. Not even 1 hour. Maybe. Very often. But what happens is that the dance form, the spirit of the dance form is so powerful in its divine femininity that it seeps through your every pore of your mind and your tangible physical body
Cells.
and your cells and beyond your cells, because the mind has no cells, beyond your cells. And it becomes a state of mind.
True. So you're saying that it just naturally comes in your relationships and in your daily life and how you're dealing with people and
It has happened so with me. It might not happen with everybody.
Yeah.
It's not so easy to be graceful in life. So I don't want to sort of sugarcoat it. That's what it's done to me. It might not do this for everybody.
yeah. You've taken our traditional dance all over the world, made a mark, with ensuring that India has its mark even everywhere in the world. Whether it's LA, whether it's Paris. We'll come to your awards a little later. But why do you feel that one must never forget their traditional roots? Why is it so important? And should we modify or break the tradition
Okay.
to go with time?
Lovely. I love your second part of the question more than the first, but first is also important. The tradition gives us a sense of, a sense of identity for whatever it's worth. To begin with, some sense of identity, some semblance of identity, I would say.
Yeah.
Semblance of identity, because finally every human being is the same. Because I started traveling around the world so early, I really found, I was very struck by the very universal nature of humanity. So I could never really go on and on, oh, I'm an Indian and I'm a German, and I don't really personally relate to that very much.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm a person of the world, and I'd really like it to be that way. But it's a good starting point, an identity, a cultural roots. But I would say beyond that, I feel very blessed to belong to a culture like our Indian culture, especially our Hindu spiritual traditions. I'm not much of a big fan of religion at all, not at all. But Hindu spiritual traditions like Upanishads and all these from a very young age, and now more than ever, only because they really they are so universal. They are so all encompassing. It's like talking about yoga. Can only an Indian do yoga? Everybody. Why everybody? It's about the breath, it's about the body, the mind, meditation. It is common to every human being. Therefore, that appeals to me. Anything that leaves, that is not inclusive, frankly, does not resonate with me at all. But that is the beauty and power of our, especially spiritual Hindu spiritual traditions, is that it is so inclusive, so infinite, so all encompassing. So I feel extremely blessed now, especially as an older person, as I delve deeper into our spiritual traditions. It's all encompassing
Yeah.
nature.
And do you think we should modify or break with the tradition? I mean,
Should we modify? I think it's very critically important. I think as Indians, we take for granted, we assume that we understand our traditions.
Yeah.
We don't. In fact, most people don't understand because it has not been explained properly. And then who's the one explaining? First of all, somebody who's themselves lost and ignorant is trying to explain. How can it be accurate or authentic? Let's get it from an authentic source, right? Otherwise, it's one blind person leading another blind person. So I feel very fortunate that I've been able to work with people who are a very authentic source.
So you're saying that we shouldn't break from the tradition.
It's not about shouldn't and shouldn't. These are all concepts. These are all man-made ideas. I mean, who's to say we shouldn't?
Yeah.
Who has the authority to say that? Whose right is it?
Yeah, I know.
Tell me, who's right?
I agree. Even Gita says that there's nothing right and nothing
Nothing.
wrong.
Who's the one deciding this? Is this second Mr. God or Mr. Absolute or Mrs. Absolute or Miss Absolute? So who's anybody trying to? Nobody has the right to do that. People who claim to do that, they need to educate themselves about what our spiritual traditions are truly all about. What is it about? You read the Bhagavad Gita, you read the Upanishads. What does it tell you? That everyone, you, me, this table, that mosquito, that fly, that moth, that lizard, we are all manifestations and expressions of the divine. We are all gods. You're a goddess, I'm a goddess. Nobody is superior to us, even if some people claim that they are, even the big whoever.
Yeah. I get that.
Yeah, they are not. They are gurus, we are also gurus. In fact, our tradition says we are all our own gurus, Sadgurus. We are inside, we are our own gurus. We don't need anybody from the external. And we are all gods. We are all. That's what Krishna says. Let them fight with Krishna. Krishna says that, na? He who sees me in everything, sarvam brahmam khalvidam, right? He who sees me in everything is already enlightened.
So Indian art forms or classical forms also follow the Guru Shishya parampara, right? Where because it's supposed to be a spiritually uplifting experience, and so where Guru comes second to God. And do you think that this parampara is getting lost in today's time?
Yeah, lost in the sense that it's not very not possible. It's not so practically easy to implement it. Where in the old days you lived with your guru and you cleaned their bartan and you drove them around, you washed their clothes, and that's wonderful. That was possible a couple of decades ago. In fact, I myself done that for my mother, and continue to do that in many ways. Served her in every which way that you can fathom. But it's not possible, you see, because people are living in different corners of the world. The guru might be in India, student might be in California. You have those pragmatic issues there. But I don't think that should diminish or water down the experience. Of course, having said that, I have to say that because I was with my mother and guru 24 hours, so while chopping pyaz, we are discussing, Ma, इस item में, what do you think? Little Drupad will be fantastic, right? Okay, great. So it was not like a student where you come for the class and ठीक है आप जाते हैं, अब अगले हफ्ते आएंगे या जो भी है कल आएंगे. We 24 hours we are
spending time with each other
and immersed in it.
Yeah.
That experience is unparalleled. That I cannot lie about.
So, any favorite part from your mother's performance that is very close to your heart?
Yeah, the Ashtapadis are my absolute favorite part of Mohiniyattam repertoire, introduced into it by my mother, because I love it is so powerful, it is so elevating, it is so overwhelming for me personally. That what can I say? Jayadeva is an enlightened being, I think. No ordinary person could have written the Gita Govindam. He's clearly not ordinary. But just the Gita Govinda drives me insane, drives me crazy just listening to it.
So, do you think your guru's legacy is reaching out to a wider global audience through you?
Yes, it's already reached the world through her to begin with, and then through her, and then through me, her work, and through me, my own work.
Yeah.
Because I'm also my own person.
Yes.
I've never imitated her. I've never done that. I feel very happy and very
Content.
and quite proud that I did not imitate her.
So, tell us about your book with her.
So yeah, we brought out this book called Mohiniyattam, published by, who was it? Wisdom Tree, 20 years ago. Released at the Rashtrapati Bhavan by the Honorable President, the then President Abdul Kalam, Mr. Abdul Kalam.
Lovely.
This is a small little coffee table book.
Yeah.
It's a whole series on Indian classical dance,
Yeah.
Manipuri, Odissi, Kuchipudi, and all of that. Mohiniyattam was also a little segment. So, but the first book that she wrote in the 80s was a very path-breaking book because it was the first book of its kind, illuminating, the history and the evolution and the origin of the dance form.
So in the book, there's also some style to jewelry associated with it. Is it?
Yeah, I mean, like all Indian dance forms, because of the various regions that they evolve in, naturally they have their own distinct costume and jewelry and hairdo.
Okay.
In Kerala, their hairdo is a very typical coiffure on the left side, gathered up on top with a string of jasmine flowers, and the costume is always off-white and gold. Those are the colors of Kerala. And the nature is so rich in Kerala that women don't have to dress up in multicolors.
Yeah.
You see how beautifully it works,
Yeah.
right? When nature is so green and it's truly so magical,
Yeah.
women just wear off-white and gold. That's more than enough.
Yeah.
And off-white and
Stands
gold,
out.
if you ask me, is
Purest form of
purest
beauty.
and very powerful,
Yeah.
more powerful than any color.
True. So when you mentioned about the different dance forms like Bharatanatyam, Kuchipudi, Kathak, how are these, and Mohiniyattam, how are these styles different from each other? Can you elaborate a little more on
Sure. So, just to answer a tiny bit on the
Yeah.
costume aspect, the white, the off-white is also a symbol of pristine femininity, purity. See, so all ties in with the spirit of Mohiniyattam, right?
Yeah.
Okay, how is Mohiniyattam different or distinct from the other Indian classical dance forms? Everybody is familiar with Bharatanatyam, with storytelling. Everybody is into storytelling. But the question is, Mohiniyattam is steeped in lasya, or lasya translates into grace. You have the tandav element, you have the lasya element. Bharatanatyam has more of the tandav element, the more
Okay.
masculine.
Okay.
Movements are more angular,
Mhm.
right? You will always see more angular.
Mhm.
Mohiniyattam, movements are circular,
Okay.
very rounded, therefore more just graceful,
Yeah.
more graceful, slower, deliberate, and it involves the torso movement. So the entire body is involved versus only the hands or the legs or the feet or any particular part of the body. Entire body is involved, which is why it is so much like Tai Chi, right?
What about Kathak and
Kathak is also storytelling, but they don't have eye movements. It's very basic. Mudras are few, not so many. Kerala has extremely elaborate mudras. You must have seen Kathakali. To show a flower, they can take about 3 hours to describe a flower. The flower and the sepals and the eyes and the eyebrows and the bees, and it can go on. No Indian dance form can match up, not even closely. Right? Because it's so elaborate, so many mudras, and very elaborate portrayal with mudras. Bharatanatyam also has fair amount of mudras, but not compared to the way Kerala uses Kerala dance traditions. Kathak has very least mudras. Kuchipudi again has fair amount of mudras like Bharatanatyam. And what was the other dance form? Manipuri is from the east. Again, very Vaishnav tradition.
Correct.
But they don't have any facial expression because the face is covered. But Manipuri has both the Lasya and the Tandava, which means the feminine and the masculine in equal measure. They have that. Mohiniyattam is only danced by women. Not that men are banned, but when I do workshops around the world, I say, the young guys say, can we do it? I said, of course you can do it, and not that you're banned from it. The technique, the men can very well do it. Yeah.
And how does this art form, how can you make it more appealing for the younger generation?
Okay, great question. The most appealing aspect of the dance form is that we are living in a world which is completely drowning in stress.
Yeah, I agree.
Drowning dangerously.
Yeah.
And whether it's a 10-year-old, 5-year-old, 25-year-old, 65-year-old, people are struggling to cope with stress. So all I can say is, would you prefer to, this is a wonderful way to cope with stress. It's like doing yoga. Would you like to have pills to deal with body issues? I don't want pills. That's my personal take on it. I would rather do yoga. I would rather do meditation. I would rather do Mohiniyattam and never have pills, never go to a Western doctor.
I love your answer.
Okay. So that's pretty enough reason, for somebody to do Mohiniyattam.
Absolutely. So how do you think this dance form can be used to address social issues? Have you done any choreography where you've addressed issues like global warming, terrorism? How do you think this can bridge, how can this bridge these issues?
Totally. My very first choreography, Uniyarcha, that I did about 25 years ago, was to address a social issue. It was inspired, like I said. I got fed up of, in our culture, women being, not having a voice, whether it's a marriage or a relationship, and just being at the receiving end. And tradition only being used where it's convenient to be used against women. And, a very, very stereotypical, repressive portrayal of femininity, whether it's in a dance form or in our lives or in our culture. And I was just so done with it. So it was a very social response, believe me.
Yeah. You speak, you give speeches also?
Yes, I do a lot of talks. I do public speaking on women's empowerment.
Okay.
And I work with a lot of women's organizations that work where women, including South Asian organizations, where women have been abused. They've been through sexual abuse, intimate partner violence, just all kinds of things.
So what is the message you want to give through these?
Message I want to... I'm nobody to give anybody a message, but...
No. But what do you want to...
What I want to really address with them and share with them is, through the beauty and power of femininity, is that as women, we have been raised to never recognize, let alone embracing comes later. First, we have to recognize it. We have been raised to never recognize our phenomenal inherent power that we are born with. And especially in cultures like South Asian cultures, including the Indian culture, we have been raised to believe as though We are only dependent beings, weak dependent beings, where we are only born to serve others. you know अपने माँ बाप को खुश करो, of course खुश तो करो, फिर अपने पति को करो, बच्चे पैदा करो, whatever. We have never been raised to love ourselves as women first and
Yeah.
foremost.
Even the kind of sacrifices I think the women make,
Yeah.
it just goes unheard and taken for granted.
And why should we make the sacrifice?
Yeah.
Please. Self-sacrifice is the worst form of altruism. Why should we sacrifice? And if we are unhappy, miserable, frustrated, do you really think we can make somebody happy? You really think so? No. But we've never been taught to love ourselves. Love your father, love your husband, love son, dog, cat. We are not even on that list. So yes, these are things I talk about.
So have you been to Pratima Bedi's Nrityagram in Bangalore?
Okay. So, my mother has known Pratima Bedi forever. They're contemporaries. They're the same age.
Okay.
Forever, from the beginning of time. And I also knew Pratima Bedi very well
Okay.
since the 80s.
Mhm.
And 90s, when she set up Nrityagram in Hesarghata, my mother was one of the closest friends who was aware that she was setting up the dance village there. And she, of course, reached out to my mother immediately and said, Bharti, I'm setting up the ODC Gurukul and I want a Mohiniyattam Gurukul. And needless to say, you are going to be heading it. So,
Okay.
my mother was the guru for the Mohiniyattam Gurukul in Hesarghata. When it was set up, I think in 1990, I think, if I'm not mistaken, because I remember when Pratima was very close to my mother. She would come to Delhi and we would discuss, and she would keep luring my mother, come here, come to Hesarghata, come to. It was very remote those days.
Yeah.
And so then my mother taught a core group of dancers, and some of them stayed and they performed with her, with my mother, and with me all over the world.
Wow.
One of them is still there, continues to perform with us. Manjula, who's a Kannadiga, she's from Davangere.
Okay.
She's a national awardee. She's a Bismillah Khan awardee from Sangeet Academy.
Mhm.
Beautiful, brilliant dancer. Some of the others have performed with me all around the world. And so, yes, it's a very deep connection
Connection.
with the Pratima and Pratima ji. And I've always admired her. And although she's my mother's generation, I have had a very deep connect with her. Just don't ask me how.
Why? I will ask you now.
Because I relate to her spirit. She's very. There's something in very. There is a sort of unspoken bond that we have, that I have with her. And yeah, she's absolutely not an ordinary person. And it's just wonderful what she has done with Nrityagram. And she's very inspiring because she's a great example of where only talent is not enough, where my mother was always a very simple person, a very simple artist. And I realize now that only talent is not enough. You also have to have a very sharp business acumen. And it's not a dirty word.
Yeah.
I was always raised by my mother to think that money is a dirty word, and that art and money are mutually exclusive. And that's not true. Pratima is a very fine example of that. Yes, you must have great talent, but you should also be smart. Have a business sense, have a marketing sense. So she's tremendously inspiring. And then she gave Nrityagram a great head start, as we can see.
Yeah. So, what inspired you to start the Mohiniyattam Institute in California? What are your objectives in the institute? And you think there is an interest generated in the American population, in your experience?
Right. Yeah, because I just found that in America, people are only familiar with Bharatanatyam. Whether the Indians, they only know Bharatanatyam. If it's non-Indians also, they only know Bharatanatyam, which is fine. I have nothing against it.
Yeah.
But what happens is I felt that then they're missing out.
Yeah.
Indians are missing out. It's like saying, I just had idli dosa and I'm happy. then you're missing out.
Yeah.
You're not eating pasta, you're not eating chole bhature. That's sad.
Yeah.
And this universe is about infinite diversity.
You must try everything.
It's
Then,
sad.
yeah.
That's the way this universe is made. God has created the universe is full of diversity. So if you go, no, 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 this is the way I will be. That's not the way it's meant to. We are not supposed to. We are not meant to experience the universe in that manner. So I felt, guys, you're missing out. And more than that, a dance form that is so healing, therapeutic, and empowering. I mean, which woman in her right senses wouldn't want to do it? Please tell me. So it resonates massively with American women. They say, oh, this is amazing. I mean, in March, I did a workshop for Ringling Museum in Florida, and I had a workshop. And I always hold a workshop for all kinds of women. It's not only for dancers or you dance for 25 years or 20 years. No. Anybody from the age of 3 to 97, they're all welcome, whether you've learned dance or not. Why? Because I want everyone to experience and connect with their femininity. I don't want Mohiniyattam to be so elitist, where it's only for some very niche people. At least that's not the way I approach it. There were women who were in the 60s with acute arthritis. I said, can I get you a chair? She said, if I can't sit, I have a back pain. I said, she can't sit, she can't stand. She was in agony. She did the workshop for an hour and a half with me. She was smiling. She did the movements. I said, I was so happy that filled my heart.
Yeah.
So it resonates with American women. It resonates with international women, rather. So many European women. We have a lot of European students who come all the way from France, especially France, Germany, Russia, and Spain. They're very intense. So there was this one student, this French student, I think. My mother and I were teaching her, and she finished a couple of months in Delhi, and she said, thank you very much, Bharati and Vijayalakshmi. I said, it was a pleasure. And then she said, thank you so much for enabling me to remember that I'm a woman, or something to that effect. We have a lot of students who come from Europe to learn from us over the many decades, French and German and Spanish and, of course, Russians. They're all very, very intensely passionate. And it's very interesting to hear about their comments, what they shared after their course is over. It could be a couple of weeks or months or a few years. And I remember this French lady, very seasoned dancer who's trained in other disciplines, telling my mother, thank you so much, Bharati, for reminding me that I'm a woman. So for making me feel like a woman. So my mother, in very tongue-in-cheek, said, I'm glad to hear that. Because, what we find in the West is there is a lot of women are very masculine.
Yeah.
There's a lot of pseudo-masculinity. And I also speak about this very often in my talks. And I think we are also seeing that in India with Indian women. I think as women, we think that to be strong, we have to be like a man, which is not true at all.
Yeah.
You can wear a sari and I can wear the biggest, fattest bindi, okay? And I can still be the most powerful person in the room with 1,000,000 men in it.
Absolutely. Silence doesn't mean that you're not powerful or it's not a sign of weakness.
Grace is not a sign of weakness. Aggression is not a sign of power as well. Aggression, if anything, is a sign of weakness and fear.
So when you mentioned about French student, I just wanted to ask you, I was curious about this because I read that your mom got an award from the mayor of Paris. So would you like to share something about that?
Yes, it was very unforgettable. I think it was 98, and we were there to perform at the Theatre de la Ville in the heart of Paris. And so the mayor of Paris was felicitating some of the very iconic gurus of India. And my mother was one of the three people. It was Birju Maharaj for Kathak, Vempati Chinnasatyam for Kuchipudi, and my mother for Mohiniyattam. Of course, she was the youngest of the three, and the other two were men. Of course, I was bursting with pride. And he said, the bonjour and all that welcome and everything in French. And then he translated in English because he wanted my mother, of all people, to understand. And he said, we are so happy to honor you with this, but please don't think that, just because we are in France, we are in Paris, that we don't know what's happening in India. We know exactly what's happening there, and we know what your iconic contribution to this dance form is. So we are so honored to, award you this. So I was amazed to hear that from the mayor of Paris, who I thought, how much does he know about Indian classical dance? How much?
One would think that but
One would
grateful.
think. But he spoke with so much conviction that you knew he was not bullshitting.
Yeah. Great feeling, huh?
Great feeling.
So, have you made any performances in LA interesting or different with different background, or any myth, culture, deity represented differently? I mean, just curious if there's anything.
Okay, super question. Yes. So, about a couple of years ago, maybe about 12 years ago, I got roped into a very, very interesting project called Carmen, inspired from the Bizet's world famous Carmen.
Okay.
It's the world's most famous Carmen, opera. And my collaborator, Sarah Bauer, who's a filmmaker. So the film involved where I danced and I acted.
Okay.
It was supposed to be a 3D film, and Panavision had commissioned it, where the 3D film was going to be the 2D film was going to be converted into a 3D film with an anamorphic lens. That unfortunately didn't happen. I think if that happened, it would have been India's first 3D film in dance. I was always super ambitious.
Yeah.
So anybody with cutting edge technology, you're in Germany, you're in France, I'll be the first one to jump into the plane and go there and do it.
Yeah.
I've always been that way, secretly, and sort of that manifests. So anyway, this was an international crew we had. The cinematographer was a Dutch cinematographer. My actor was one of the very well-known actors of Hollywood, which I never imagined, Michael Irby. And he played my partner come agent who's, trying to suppress me. And he says, I made you. And it was a short film that was made and screened at some international festivals in America and around the world. Music was by an Oscar awardee, Yuval Ron, who's a sacred Jewish music composer. And I ended up acting in the film and dancing substantially. And the costumes were done by Terry, who does costumes for Leonardo DiCaprio and Madonna.
Wow.
So it was like, this couldn't be more.
Yeah.
It was surreal.
Yeah.
And the whole film was shot in one day. 6:30 a.m. to 11 p.m.
Wow, how was the experience? What was it like?
Mind-blowing. It was shot at the Annenberg Foundation, downtown LA, with an industrial sort of setting. It was amazing. I mean, how many people could say they've experienced this?
Yeah.
My makeup was done by Leonardo DiCaprio's makeup artist. Could I have asked for more?
No.
Please tell me.
No. Lovely, lovely. Also, I've heard that your mom got award. I think from the PM Padma Shri Award.
Yeah.
And so, were you around? Were you there?
I definitely was there, and actually her contribution is so huge that Padma Shri is too less.
Yeah.
I think she should really have got a Padma Vibhushan or something like that, but it's okay.
Yeah.
Artists don't do things for external validation, but it would be nice if her award was updated.
Yeah.
Considering that she's been solely responsible for this dance form and celebrated internationally, it would be very nice to be acknowledged in her home country.
Correct.
Yeah.
And what is your vision for the future of Mohiniyattam and Carnatic music? Is there any future collaborations, exciting ones that is coming up?
I just did a very exciting collaboration this summer in June in LA with Yuval Ron, who's an Oscar awardee. Sacred Jewish music.
Yeah.
With I danced Mohiniyattam, completely impromptu, unchoreographed. It was liberating, it was refreshing, it was energizing.
Wow.
I did not choreograph the entire 1 hour. I said, let me free myself from choreography. It was so lovely.
Yeah.
Middle Eastern percussion, various Middle Eastern percussion instruments. Yuval playing the Jewish oud.
Yeah.
It's like a sort of sarodish sort of instrument.
Wow.
And we had sitar, played by an American. He's Ravi Shankar's disciple, very senior disciple. And the performance happened in downtown LA for underprivileged, marginalized communities, free for them.
Okay.
I couldn't ask for more, simply.
Sounds
Because
fantastic.
it was, the music was so powerful
Yeah.
in its spirituality
Yeah.
that it complemented the spiritual essence of Mohiniyattam. It was so powerful
Yeah, I'm sure. And you're saying it was impromptu, so it must have been.
and never
Right.
been done.
Yeah.
It's never been done by any Indian dancer, not in India, not anywhere in the world. So yes, I'm happy and grateful.
And what is your vision for the future?
Vision for the future is Mohiniyattam is for every woman to enjoy.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
Because femininity applies to every woman. Na?
Yeah.
Can any woman be excluded? Tell me.
No.
Half the population of the world is included. Half the population is good for Mohiniyattam.
And have your performances helped in your emotional, philosophical journey?
Yeah, it's helped me to express, whether it's emotions, whether it's joy, celebration, celebrate myself. It's helped me to celebrate myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is the most difficult emotion you think, and how would you express it in in Mohiniyattam? Would you like to show us?
Yeah, I think for me, a very difficult expression is anger.
Yeah.
It's difficult for me to, because I'm not an aggressive person by nature. I'm a very soft spoken, and I've always found it very difficult to portray, to get angry. I mean, I'm very fierce. I'm very no nonsense, but
Yeah.
I'm not to really become, in that sense, really go all out and be angry in relationships. I find that very difficult.
So, if you had to express it
How
through-
do we express it through Mohiniyattam?
Yeah.
So it would be, we just build the anger.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
how dare you?
And then probably the music also would be adding to it, right? During
The music
performance.
is, of course, there, but whether there's
Yeah.
music or not.
Yeah.
So
The expressions are coming out well.
they're always exaggerated.
Yeah.
Of course, we might not exaggerate it so much. But,
Yeah.
for example, Shiva's third eye, then
Yeah.
how Shiva burns
Yeah.
Cupid or Manmada.
Yeah.
Also, the eyes are used very prominently, much more than other Indian dance forms. Much more.
I read that. Thank you for doing that. I feel Indian classical dance and the sacred arts offer you solace and help you find yourself. Do you agree?
Absolutely. They are very transcendental.
Yeah.
They help you transcend. It's like meditation.
Yeah.
You see, they also help you. It's exactly like meditation. When you dance, you forget where you are.
Yeah.
Which room am I in? Which country? What is the weather? What is to be cooked for dinner? It's truly elevating, and it takes you beyond your mind and beyond your body, which is why it is so transcendent.
So, last question: what advice would you give young musicians and dancers, and what skill qualities are most important for success in this field?
The most important quality is to be grounded. Very important to be grounded. No matter where, the amount of fame you see, the amount of wealth, accolades, awards, honors, or whatever else it may be. It's wonderful. Of course, wonderful if it all comes, and we all want it. I want it. Why would I be? I would unabashedly say that. But with all of this, to be also aware that all these things are very transient, they are external, and that finally we don't need external validation. Only if somebody gives you a certain award that I'm a good artist? No.
Yeah.
There are some very phenomenal artists who have never been given an award. They don't give a damn.
Yeah.
They are not doing it for an award, they are doing it for their own happiness.
Yeah.
They are doing it to connect with divinity. There is no award there. But yes, because we are humans and we're all playing this game out here and we are in this material world of Maya,
Yeah.
right? It's a material world. So, yes, let's enjoy the wealth and the jewelry and the lovely car and the fame, but let's also be aware of its very ephemeral nature.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Vijayalakshmi. I really enjoyed and loved our chat. And I think it's going to be very inspiring for all the women out there. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Neha. What a pleasure to be here.
Same, same.